listening to him tell Edie like it's just propaganda, like they're literally
Hmm.
selling you this stuff. I'm like, I feel like I'm like dealing with somebody's parents or grandparents who just sit and watch Fox News all day, because these are
Hmm.
the things that I think. I'm like,
Hmm.
you're being sold these ideas, like
Right.
you haven't formulated them in your head, you're just hearing it
Hmm.
regurgitated over and over until you believe it.
And a lot of people with progressive ideas, I feel like, can relate to the fact that it always kind of starts with your family, like trying to correct the information that they've been told or the things they believe, the things they grow up with. It's funny because when he was actually introduced, I was like believing him. I was like, oh my God,
Same.
are we going to see the Syril Karn defection arc? Welcome back to This is The Way Seekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. My name's Austin SWE, and I'm joined with my Rebel co-pilot once again to be discussing the second arc of Andor Season 2, the first one-year time jump that we've been talking about, anticipating. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Scotty, I want to ask you basically that. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Did you enjoy this one-year time jump?
I'm conflicted. I feel like Anakin. We
Conflicted.
just saw Revenge of the Sith. I'm feeling conflicted because I want to say yes and no.
Hmm.
I feel like it works really well for this story because there's just so much to tell, and a lot of it's action.
Right.
On the flip side, I found myself being like, I wonder what happened to Take Holma. And it's just like it's the Sly Moore dinner from season one all over again. We're
Right.
just not gonna know.
Interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. I think that it was obviously a very big creative hurdle, and I think
Mhm.
that they did it perfectly. I feel like for example, the Take Homa thing, right? Yes, there's no direct, oh, this is what happened, but if you remember, Cinta mentioned that she got in an accident to Vel.
I did think about
And
that when she said that. Yeah, I was
right.
like,
And
hmm.
we know that, like, timeline wise, the accident that she would have had to have gotten in with Tacoma to make it seem like an actual thing and not like she was murdering somebody,
Oh, so you think she like crashed the speeder or something?
she would have had to, right? Like, she couldn't have just taken in and killed him. I mean, he's like a
I
high
mean,
profile senator, right? Or
okay,
he's not a senator, but what is he exactly?
he's a banker. He's like a
Banker.
financial person
Hmm.
who's like a very well-known financial person. I mean, I just
Right.
imagine Cinta would pull an Aldani and just like put the blaster to his head and call it a day because she's a warrior.
Right. But I think that, it 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 just is a cleaner look that Tacoma got in a car accident rather than Tacoma mysteriously disappeared and no one knows where he went and
Yeah,
was possibly murdered.
after the Skuld and Mothma wedding. Yeah, you're right. That
Right.
probably wouldn't have looked very cool. That feels a lot
Yeah.
cleaner for Luthen, for his
Yeah.
work though. So
Yeah, definitely. But overall, I liked having the 1 year time jump and kind of the creative ways that they continued the story. I feel like there was some things that felt like direct continuations, like the Gorman
mhm.
stuff, for example. I feel like I didn't really miss much, even though a year has happened. It's one of those things that's obviously going to take a few years. I think director
Yeah,
Krennic
for
even
sure.
said that in his initial meeting that it would take like 3 years or something like
Mhm.
that overall. So I enjoyed it. I didn't mind it basically.
Well, one thing I did like, and
Mhm.
I think you could probably agree with this, is that we got to see how these relationships have changed in this year time,
Yeah.
which I think was one of the coolest things about this episode. We got
Mhm.
to see, where Bix and Cassian were then, and now we get to see them a
Mhm.
year later. We saw Dedra and Syril, whose relationship was completely new to us, and we could
Mhm.
see where that relationship has gone in a year. And even
Right.
with Luthen and Clea, like
Yeah.
everybody's relationships have kind of changed. I might even say that Lita being out of the house is maybe helping Perrin and Mon's relationship. Like, it
Yeah.
was very interesting.
Yeah, you're so right. The relationships have changed a lot in this last year. I mean, think about even Cyril's relationship with the Empire. He's
Oh,
now
yeah.
this double agent working for the Imperial Bureau of Standards on Ghorman and
Mhm.
convincing these rebels that he's some sort of, sympathizer to their cause. It's so interesting, and I almost feel like the ISB, using him, and they're even using his backstory of being fired by the ISB. Cyril even uses that to his advantage, which I thought was so interesting and kind of shows how dedicated he is to the
Yeah,
Empire
yeah.
because he's kind of
He's
like,
he
he's
thinks
not
he's
proud of
getting
that.
in he thinks he's getting in good with them, so he's willing to do anything, even
Exactly.
run his name through the mud,
Mhm.
which isn't he hasn't done that much, but to him,
Mhm.
and because of his mom, Uncle Harlow, all that crap, his appearance and the way he comes across to others and his success, it's very important to him. And it's
Yeah.
crazy seeing him, his mom talks it down all the time,
Mhm.
but letting the Empire essentially use it to their advantage. He's like, go ahead,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
all in. It's
100%.
crazy.
Yeah, and he's so smart with it too, the way that he convinces them. He knows that they're listening, talking about imperial propaganda with his mom, saying that's what they're feeding you. But it's so interesting because it's clearly something that he realizes, because we
Mhm.
know as of the last arc, they are feeding imperial propaganda about Ghorman to people. Is this something he's actually aware of and knows about? It's funny because when he was actually introduced, I was like believing him when he was talking about it. I was like, "Oh my god,
Same.
are we going to see the Syril Karn defection arc here? Or deflection arc here? Is it actually going to happen?" And it didn't, and I was proven wrong very quickly. But I still feel like there's a possibility there, right? That he could eventually see what's actually going on, sympathize with the people he's actually working with. I could just see a world where, he learns something that he really should be reporting back to Dedra, but he just can't because in his I don't want to say heart. I don't know if Syril has a heart, but in his brain, in his calculative brain, he's like, well, technically, you guys are, killing these people and,
Yeah.
spreading false information. I feel like he's just such a technical person. I feel like there's a world where he stops and is like, the fuck? What's going on?
Yeah, I think the fact that we know that Partagaz and Dedra are keeping things from him on the mission, I
Hmm.
think that that could be the thing that kind of flipped a switch in his head to be like, well, if they don't trust me
Hmm.
to actually tell me why I'm here, why am I doing this to begin with? And
Hmm.
I also think that part of it, it's funny because Edie's said multiple times, like, oh, Coruscant's great, come back to Coruscant. I almost wonder if being off of Coruscant and on his own again has made him question some of these things because he's not kind of like what I talked about with the first arc. He's not in the pressure cooker of Coruscant, being
Hmm.
fed this stuff. So he's looking at it from the outside instead.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just listening to him tell Edie, it's just propaganda. They're literally
Hmm.
selling you this stuff. I feel like I'm dealing with somebody's parents or grandparents who just sit and watch Fox News all day. Because these are
Hmm.
the things that I think. I'm like,
Hmm.
you're being sold these ideas.
Right.
You haven't formulated them in your head. You're just hearing it
Hmm.
regurgitated over and over until you believe it, which is
Right.
the propaganda of the Empire. And just like we talked about last episode.
And a lot of people with progressive ideas, I feel like, can relate to the fact that it always kind of starts with your family, like trying to correct the information that they've been told or the things they believe, the things they grow up with,
Tell
being
them
like,
to think for themselves and formulate their own opinions.
exactly. So I'm
Ugh,
almost like, I was like, oh my God, are we seeing the start of it? And you know me, I love me a little redemption story in Star Wars.
yes, you
So
do.
it's Syril Karn and but I feel like I've been seeing this coming since season 1, and there's no proof of it on this podcast, but when I talked about season 1 in other avenues, I was like, Syril Karn, I feel like could turn. He's that character where he he's basically an incel. He's been sold these ideas. He's been sold fascism
Mhm.
as a solution to his loneliness. The fact that he
Yep.
doesn't have, a community, the fact that his, mother, the only person in his life, just looks down on him. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, are we going to see kind of this changing this character? Now he has a girlfriend and he's having sex, turn the lights out, and now maybe he's even
I
going to
really did
sympathize with people.
I really didn't wanna believe that that's what they were doing with turning the lights out. I was like, "Maybe it's just because, she doesn't want anybody seeing the windows." Um,
Right.
let's talk about their relationship for a sec, though,
Yeah.
because in talking about this gap, their
Hmm.
relationship seems like it's not going the best.
Yeah.
Um, she's got people watching Syril just coming to her apartment. They've only got 1 hour. He doesn't
Hmm.
seem happy about it, and I thought Dedra was gonna be possibly the one to defect. Um,
Hmm.
but it seems like, yeah, it's going to be the opposite. And the fact that Cyril, I assume, will eventually learn that Dedra is not telling him the truth or lying to him,
Hmm.
that could be what breaks him
Yeah.
because his mommy issues, this new woman in his life. Like, and then he's like,
Mhm.
you screwed me over too. That's why he got away from his mom.
Mhm.
That's why
Yeah.
he went to Morlana 1 in the first place, to get away from her and to
Yeah.
do something on his own. I could see him, if, the Empire doesn't completely, which I guess we know they will, like, destroy Ghorman, I could see him deciding to stay there and being a part of the community.
Yeah, 100%. I do feel like there's that wedge. I said it last week where I felt like it was going to be the fact that she couldn't tell him about
You did.
this, mission. And it's interesting because he's like way more involved than I thought he would be, but he
Same.
still doesn't know like what he's
That's the
doing all
thing.
this for.
What have they told him? What
Right.
does he think he's doing? We don't know. And this kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, like, we're not gonna know, probably. That's
Mhm.
probably just information that's gonna be left for us to wonder. And I did
Yeah.
have to think to myself, imagine if we got a 3-episode arc of Syril on Gorman.
Yeah.
If we had 12 episodes, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go down that rabbit hole. We got plenty more to talk about.
Yeah, it is interesting though, and that's one of the things because I keep going back and forth, and I think our conversation here shows that whether there is a possibility of Syril Karn
Yeah,
defecting or not, is that he doesn't even know what this mission is. He's just doing it, and he probably just tells himself it's for the greater cause of the Empire. That's
yeah.
whatever they believe in is what I believe in, and so
What they
it's
think is right, he thinks is right.
literally. So I have no idea where he could go if he's going to be redeemed or not. I think you guys should let us know in the comments because we want to
Please.
hear all the perspectives.
Yes, because we can't make up our minds, obviously, and hopefully y'all can't either. We can all chat about it.
Yes, 100%. But he's very smart. Cyril is
Yeah.
very smart. The way that
He's
he's
super analytical. Like, yeah,
100%. The way he's orchestrating this whole thing with allowing the rebels to win. So Dedra even says, giving them a taste of what it's like to win, and the ways that he's convincing them that he's a part of their cause. It's so calculated and so good that it's like, how is this guy undervalued by the ISB? I mean, I understand why he was fired. He, very, very much messed up in season one,
yeah.
especially with what the Empire was doing. But it's like, this guy has a good brain that it's like so weird that he's the one that's like left out of it.
I think I'm pretty sure that even after when Dedra first interrogates him when they first meet
Hmm.
on Coruscant, he like literally screams like I could be an asset. And
Yeah.
she's just like, don't ever fucking scream at me again.
Literally. But this whole plan was so smart that it was successful. It worked. And was this the first time that we actually saw Cyril, make a plan that was actually successful here? I mean, he wanted them to steal the cargo ship, steal I assume it's weapons or something like
Yeah.
that, just the crates. And it was successful. That's exactly what happened. I mean, Cinta died, but that doesn't bother him.
Yeah. I knew she was gonna die too. The emotional scene of
Hmm.
her and Vel, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, one of them's gonna die.
Yeah, 100%. Once they were both introduced and reunited, I was like, "Oh God." And
Yeah.
two, when they both said that they were there because they knew that the other would be there and they just wanted to see each other, I was like, "Oh God, this isn't going to go well because I feel like they're not in it for the right reasons or,
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. I was like, Cinta is definitely acting way different than the last time we saw her. Because
Mhm.
before it was all about the mission, and she was
Mhm.
constantly letting Vel down on the like as
Mhm.
her partner, because
Mhm.
all she was ever worried about. And she says, "We take what comes left. Mission's
Mhm.
always first." And
Yeah.
this time, her being like, "Yeah, I feel horrible that I've been away from you for so long. I only took this mission because I wanted to be with you." Like,
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, this isn't gonna end well. Gay people can never be
Yeah.
happy."
Ever, and especially in Star Wars. But even when because Luthen kind of alludes to the fact that he knows that it could be unsuccessful, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm sure we'll get into this further with him and Cassian's dynamic. But his thought
Mhm.
process is basically if it goes bad, if Gorman burns and the Empire, fucks them all over, it's going to enact other people to, fight
Well,
against them and spark more rebellion elsewhere.
that's
And
because everyone's just a chess piece to Luthen,
yeah,
and we're
100%.
definitely seeing that in this arc.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I was gonna say is like Vel and Cinta. I almost feel like he allowed them to be on this mission together, knowing that one of them, if not both of them, could die and would die,
Mhm.
because they both say like Luthen values us apart, rather than
Yes.
together. I'm like, oh my god, this whole time I was like, oh my god.
I feel like he's scrambling to try to get all his wires from being crossed because
Hmm.
we have Vel and Cinta, who are romantically involved.
Right.
We have Bix and Cassian, who are romantically involved again. And I
Hmm.
think Luthen sees that's an issue.
Hmm.
And because Luthen's eyes is do whatever I have to do for the mission. I need all
Hmm.
my operatives to focus on the mission. That comes first. And
Right.
obviously with Vel and Cinta, that wasn't what came first for them because they didn't necessarily take it and they only took it because the other was going.
Hmm.
And then there's the struggle with Cassian and Bix and their relationship now. Cassian trying to protect Bix from the world essentially, and Luthen sees that's an issue as well.
Hmm.
So Luthen, I do kind of think that Luthen is trying to split everybody up because, like I
Yeah.
said, he's seeing that these emotional ties are causing
Hmm.
issues. I mean, he says something to that effect when he speaks to Lonnie in the
Hmm.
underworld in his amazing monologue in season one. He's like, I don't
Yeah.
have relationships anymore. I
Hmm.
don't have friends. It's
Yeah.
just the rebellion, and I'm gonna die doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like Luthen's mindset is almost, I feel like the way Andor is structuring it is that Luthen's mindset might be a little too extreme for what the rebellion is actually doing. And I feel like it's a natural progression here that we see Cassian and Luthen kind of have this wedge in between them, because we
Mhm.
know that Cassian is eventually part of Mon Mothma's rebellion, the one that she leads.
The
And
wider rebellion, the
exactly.
true rebel alliance.
Mhm. And I feel like they're almost setting it up where Cassian is going to, you know, in terms of the ladder here, the rebel ladder, he's going to surpass Luthen here, because the way he's already thinking about, like, you know, are we just going to allow these people to die? Like, is that okay? Is that something that we can just, allow to happen? I feel like it's just not part of the rebellion's mindset here, where they're like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, let's fuck over this planet so that all the other planets, not even so that all the other planets will do well, for the chance of all the other planets to
exactly.
prosper. We're not
Exactly.
going to sacrifice lives for other lives, basically.
Well, and you know why? Had
Why?
Cassian unfortunately not seen it happen to his own planet, he
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to make this decision now to walk away,
Hmm.
which is
Exactly.
he's been on such a crazy arc already,
Hmm.
Cassian, and I feel like this is also where the time jumps come into play because we don't actually get to see the growth, we just get to see it in motion,
Hmm.
or like see it as it's already happened,
Hmm.
and we're clearly seeing that in this episode, and that's a really great point that you bring up is just the fact that Luthen's starting to get a little too radical, I guess you could say, and
Hmm.
Cassian's the one trying to reel it in.
Hmm.
Um, Even Luthen says to him, he's like, I don't need you to think like a soldier, I need you to think like a leader.
Hmm.
When in
Yeah.
reality, who's really thinking like a leader in this situation?
a hundred
Cassian.
percent
Who's
a
acting
hundred
like a
percent
soldier? Luthen. Or
Hmm.
an extremist, like his good friend Saw.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Cassian, like, with how it all ended with him and Bix, well, it was mostly Bix, but Cassian was present when that entire building was blown up that Dr. Gorst was in. So
Yeah.
it's not like Cassian is of the mindset of like, we can't have any violence. I feel like
Mhm.
Cassian as a character is for Cassian, he has the devil and an angel on his shoulders, that cliche thing.
Maybe you could say the Ashla and the Bogan on either shoulder.
Yes, he has Mon and then Luthen, where Mon's like, we, keep the peace in any way possible. And Luthen's like, fuck it, kill everybody if it means that there's peace.
Yeah.
And
For the
Cassian,
chance of peace.
exactly.
Not even a guarantee for
Cassian's
the
like
chance.
that happy medium where I feel like,
Yeah.
he cannot 100% follow what Mon Mothma's ideals are, but he can't also 100% follow what Luthen's are. I feel like in the end there we see like a good example of violence that's needed. Dr. Gorst deserved that shit. And
Well,
the people that worked with Dr. Gorst deserve that shit. Like those are people that, you know, needed to die in order for peace to happen.
Oh, well, don't forget that Major Partagaz even mentions to two of the ISB officers, the Emperor's like, we're gonna do more with Dr. Gorst's program. We need more
Hmm.
people to inflict this torture on the galaxy, essentially. And we already know they're taking in a bunch of prisoners because they talk about it a bunch of times in the episodes. Like,
Hmm.
that needed to be stopped because we've seen what it did to one person. We've seen what it
Hmm.
did to Bix and how
Yeah.
she's still struggling. Poor thing's doing drugs just to
Yeah.
sleep at night.
Yeah. Oh, oh my God. Poor Bix. Poor fucking Bix.
Let her
And
catch a break, and we kinda got her little victory by the fact that
mhm,
she got to not only inflict Dr. Gorst's horrible tactics
mhm,
on himself, but then
mhm.
obviously got to blow up and keep that from ever
Yeah.
happening to anybody else. So I hope that helps her move on from it, because
Yeah.
clearly she don't have time for therapy. So
Right. Do they even have that in Star Wars? I feel like the therapist would be very busy in a galaxy far, far away. But
yeah.
yeah, I feel like Bix will be able to sleep at night. When she thinks of Dr. Gore, she's going to think about him being dead, him never being able to do this shit to anyone else ever again.
Mhm.
It's just that peace of mind there, and it's exactly what Bix needs to continue.
Yes.
You
Well,
know.
and for her to be strong, as
Hmm.
Luthen says, he's like, he needs her at her best.
Hmm.
And I'm kinda curious on how that mission even worked out.
Hmm.
Um how they ended up going to see Dr. Gorst, but I'm glad that it did, because
Right.
also she was like, "Cassian, you have to trust me to go on a mission." Like, and Cassian, it seems like he let her
Hmm.
do the majority of the groundwork.
Right. Yeah. I think it was just a bunch of things coming together for both Cassian and Bix, because
Mhm.
Bix brings up, the point that, she does not want to fall in line with what Dr. Gorst is doing.
Yes.
She kind of saw herself in that soldier that was killed, and she brings this up to Cassian. And I feel like the ending there was just a natural progression of everything that happened with Luthen and Cassian, their conversation, with the conversations that Bix and Cassian had. It was kind of that happy medium, like I said, where, this is violence, but it's not violence for the sake of it, or, for personal reasons. Dr. Gorst and the people he worked with needed to die in order for peace to be there. And
I
so,
will only agree with you in the sense of Star Wars. In this galaxy and in this story, yes, the violence needed to happen.
yeah, well, there may be some cases in the real world, but
We're not we're not a political podcast. We're a Star Wars podcast, because
oh
we know
yeah,
those
because
two
there's
things are completely different.
yeah, there's no politics in Star Wars whatsoever.
God.
So speaking of politics, let's catch up with our senators here. It's funny because all within the same room, we have key figures of the Empire and key
Yeah.
figures of the Rebellion. And
Mhm.
Clea has to work in front of all of them in one of the most thrilling, heart racing spy sequences in all of Star Wars. And it's so interesting because it's something that it just feels so minuscule compared to the other things we see in Star Wars. She has to
Oh, yeah.
take a microphone from an artifact, and like
Yes,
it's being
but it's
seen as this
everything.
big thing. Exactly, it's
It's everything
everything.
that's at stake. Like,
Exactly.
everything that we've watched in this episode falls apart if she does not find this listening
Hmm.
device. And when I say everything in this episode, I'm not just talking about her and Luthen. I'm talking about Ghorman, I'm talking about
Hmm.
Syril, I'm talking about Cassian, Bix, all of them. Even
Mon,
Mon.
yeah, Mon
And
and Davos Golden, funding for
yeah,
the rebellion.
well, we don't know if Davo was in on that part, but still, even the melting pot of all the people in that room. And we
Hmm.
have Mon like trading blows with Director Krennic just right
Hmm.
there.
Yeah,
And then
that was so
poor
funny.
poor Lonnie Young, he has to always be involved in the most stressful situations he did not ask to be a part of. He wanted to stay with Dedra's twink assistant, throwing back drinks, but of course
Yep.
Clay was like, pretend we're flirting. And I love this artifact, and I'm gonna tell you about it. And then she's
Hmm.
actually like, if you don't smile and move to the left, like everything's over for all of us. So shut up and move. Poor
She's
thing.
so like she's always on fire. I love Clea. I
She is
love the
always
fact
on
that
fire. That's a good way to put it.
yeah, she just I'm so glad that she's being highlighted more in this arc and in this season
Me too,
specifically.
because I was so
She's
over her in season 1. I was like, "Why is she here?"
Right.
But now we're
But
actually seeing her do things, and she's being
exactly.
kind of funny without trying. Like, I'm actually
Mhm.
enjoying her directness as a character
Yeah.
because they're putting her in these situations between the
Mhm.
wedding, which was kind of like a bubbling pot waiting to burst, and then the
Mhm.
same thing in this room with the listening device.
Mhm.
I was really curious why she was listening in on Davos Golden, and it never clicked in my head that, oh, she's got a listening device in there, and that's why.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think of it at first. I was like, "What's the importance of this?" But I knew, Davos Golden being involved. I was just like, I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
come to me eventually."
Something skeezy's going on because Davos Golden's involved. Remember, he's a thug, so
Yes.
we gotta watch what he's doing and figure it out. I
Yeah.
wish I wish we got more of the politics in this episode, but I feel like
Mhm.
I was really treated with the first arc, so the second arc
Yeah.
was never gonna be able to give me everything I wanted. I did enjoy watching Mon go around trying to get votes.
That
Still
was
talking
that was
about
a good scene.
Still talking about the PORD. I don't
Mhm.
know how far you've read into the Mask of Fear, but it's something that we also see her doing in the book in some of the early chapters. So I kind of like that we got to see her go around and just see a little bit of the politics of it all.
Right.
Um, that scary Oathbringer man in the Senate, didn't like that.
Oh, yeah, 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 and it was so funny too because they're literally doing something similar to the Pledge of Allegiance, to the
Yep,
national anthem.
yep.
And
The
it's seen as like this, like, "Oh my god, like, what the fuck? This fucking
Yes,
cult," and
it
it's
was
like
unsettling and cultish, and I would have
mhm.
been right with Mon walking out the room. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
Mhm.
No.
But I mean, think of how different is it from having kids do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in class? Like, it's like holding up a mirror to America and being like, "Look how fucking, stupid and scary you guys look."
Well,
Like,
that's why I stopped saying it in school.
me too. And then the ROTC kids would be like, "Stand up!"
No, no, no. But yeah, I wish we had more politics. I'm glad with the politics we did get
Mhm.
because it also brought the camp back into this episode, which this was a lots of dialogue. There's a
Yeah.
lot of dialogue in this arc, and
Mhm.
I feel like because maybe I'm at 80% because I haven't been feeling well, it was going a little over my head. I
Mhm.
definitely wrote way more notes this time around, but a lot of the questions that were brought up were answered by the end.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say is I too was struggling with like, okay, what exactly is going on with Cyril and his mission? Is he feeding the information to them? Or,
Mhm.
is he secretly giving it to them? Are they just trying to hire him? What exactly is going on? But then by the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, I understand it now. Cause like
Yeah,
two, I was like, wait a second. I for some reason I thought when they were doing the whole mission that it was going to blow up right then and there. Like
same.
they were going to fail and they were going to kill all the rebels. I for some reason it slipped my mind or I wasn't paying attention in that scene when him and Dedra were like this is what needs to happen. So yeah, it is one of those things where everything all comes together in the end once you're finished with it and you're like, "Oh,
And you know
that
what's
makes
funny
sense."
about that? What's funny about it is both the ISB and Axis, Luthen,
Mhm.
they're both separately struggling with being given too much information and not knowing how
Mhm.
to really handle everything.
Right.
And it's kind of funny how that was a parallel of us watching the episode. So it all worked out in the end, but I thought that was really funny. It's this was an interesting arc.
Mhm.
I'll say
I
that.
I think that this arc specifically would have benefited from 3 weeks, you know?
Oh, yes, for
Yeah.
sure, because we would've had time to process everything,
Mhm.
and I could have used that processing time because 'cause I'm not gonna lie, when we finished, I was like, "Oh my god, I have no idea what I'm gonna talk about or how I'm going to talk
Literally.
about it."
Yeah, it really was a lot, and something we haven't even mentioned yet is Wilmon and Dakar.
Mm,
You know me,
yes.
sequel fan, sequel lover, and I almost feel like it had to have been on this podcast too that you said that that planet looked like Dakar from The Force Awakens when we saw it in the trailer.
Yes, I was hoping for Dantooine, but I also said it looked very similar to Dakar.
Mhm.
Um, I always complain that they never revisit other locations,
Mhm.
and then here I am being like, "Ugh, of course it had to be Dakar, some
Right.
boring planet we only see for 5 minutes." So it's like I'm never happy.
Right. As much
But
as I hate the fact that the sequels are just rehash of Rebellion versus Empire, I am a sucker for them showing sequel locations in the original trilogy era. In
mm,
Leia, Princess of Alderaan, we see them operating from the crate base that we see in The Last Jedi, but it's like
yeah,
before A New Hope, so it's actually Bail Organa and like the Alderaan rebel cell. They
mhm,
operate out of crates. So I like seeing
interesting.
it where it's like, oh, okay, so the rebels used this, so when the resistance came across it, there was actual precedent for them to be there because this was a rebel
Exactly.
base.
It was an old rebel base. Yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. I agree. I
Yeah.
do I love when they take something from another era in Star Wars and
Hmm.
insert it into a completely different era
Hmm.
because it's just fun to have that connectivity. And
Yeah.
it's not like in a obnoxious fan servicey way. It's just like you said,
Hmm.
this was an old rebel base. Now the resistance is using it. Or this
Hmm.
was a resistance base. Oh, but it was an old rebel base and here are the rebels on said base.
Hmm.
The Saw stuff was very bizarre.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it was important though, and I feel like it was very powerful by the end, seeing Wilmon actually have that moment.
He
It was a
drank the
little crazy.
Kool-Aid. He drank the Kool-Aid. That's what
Yes,
that
but
moment
he's
was.
he's joining the cause, and
But
I
then
just feel
again,
like, for a
he
character like him, he's going to lose his fucking mind.
yeah, I mean, he was the one that made a bomb,
Mhm.
um,
Cuz
and
I feel like
barracks.
if Saw Gerrera were to get a hold of Bix, like the same thing would happen by the end, where she's like, you know, a-
Well,
accepting the fact that she's kind of fucking crazy now that everything has happened.
with her current mental state, yes. With her with not in this mental state, no. Wilman Wilman is, someone who is begging for, I don't wanna say violence, but I feel
Mhm.
like he's easily preyed upon because of the things he's had done wrong to him. He's lost his
Mhm.
father, he's lost his girlfriend now,
His
like,
home
he lost his
twice.
home. Yeah, true. So, I feel like he's vulnerable to
Mhm.
be inflicted by Saw's
Mhm.
insanity.
Yeah, 100%. But I still feel like it's powerful, and I still feel like even though Saw Gerrera, he's very criticized within the Star Wars canon, someone like him and his partisans are still very much needed. Like with Cassian being the happy medium there, it's like all these characters are still needed for them all to come together. And obviously Saw Gerrera and his partisans never come together, but he's still like a vital part of the rebellion. Like the rebellion does not exist without Saw Gerrera, even though they don't operate with him. The things he's done, the things he's led, he's a key part of it, and that means that Wilmon is still going to be a key part of everything. Now, is he going to be used as kind of a lens for the differences here, and we'll
And for
eventually get
us
to
as the
see
viewer,
him? Yeah, like I feel like, at least in a perfect world for me, he would eventually you know move away from Saw and his partisans and join
nah,
the rebels on
he
Yavin.
drank the Kool-Aid, like I said, it ain't
Yeah.
happening, and we do know he eventually ends up on Gore,
Yeah.
or on Gorman.
Well,
So
that's what I mean. Like if he's like, I feel like there's a world where he kind of sees the issues with what Saw Gerrera's partisans are
okay.
doing. And that's what I mean. Like he's kind of used as a lens to like criticize Saw Gerrera.
Well,
Like,
we probably won't get to see that because we have to move to
yeah, we don't have much
2BBY
time.
next week. So we'll probably either he'll be in with Saw Gerrera or he'll
Hmm.
be back with Cassian. I
Hmm.
feel like we're not gonna get that happy medium.
Right. I feel like it is a possibility because I actually didn't know that he was on Gorman, so I'm taking your word for it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's in the trailers.
Interesting. So like maybe there's a world where everybody meets on Gorman, like
I mean,
all these different.
we
Yeah.
have to go back there. There's
Mhm.
there's gotta be a Gorman Massacre 2, and I
Well, yeah.
love that they acknowledge the first Gorman Massacre with the
Mhm.
Tarkin Massacre because
Mhm.
that was like a Legends thing, and
Yeah.
they brought it back into canon in a way that still fit with the story, so I loved
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But we've got to see. We know Gorman's like the big. That's the big event that's happening
Yeah.
over these years with season 2. So we're going back there for sure.
Well, yeah, that's not what I mean. I mean, I know Tony Gilroy said there's 5 episodes with Gorman. I mean,
Mhm.
are we going to see Mon Mothma, Cassian, Luthen, and then Saw Gerrera's partisans? Are they all going to be on Gorman meeting up? Like, is this going to be the location where everything fucking blows up? Because now everybody's wires are being crossed here. Because if we're seeing Wilmon on
Mhm.
Gorman, then that means Saw's partisans can't be too far behind him, right?
Oh, like maybe do you mean like maybe we could see them even not necessarily lines getting crossed, but like trying to work together on this?
Not even trying to work together, but everybody's going to be in the same spot at once. Like
Yeah.
all the characters are finally going to come together. I don't know if it'd be like them working together. I actually think that it would cause more chaos, if
Well,
anything,
well,
like a
that
civil
might
war almost.
I mean, I could see it in a way of like the rebellions trying to work together or like trying
Hmm.
to work together as these separate cells, and then it literally blows up in their face and
Hmm.
proves to why they can't work with Saw or with certain groups.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how it's going to come together, but I would like to think that at some point, even if it's not on Gorman,
Hmm.
these few cells that we have been following are going to
Hmm.
have to cross paths with each other. And it
Yeah,
seems like Gorman is the Empire's huge priority right now, too.
right. Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it all plays out. Like I said, we know we have 2 more episodes of Gorman. I've also, I've been watching some interviews. Mon Mothma or Genevieve O'Reilly says that Mon Mothma has a really big scene in episode 9 that she's said that she's very proud of, that she had to channel her inner Mon Mothma to even do.
Oh,
Um,
yay,
I'm
that makes me
assuming it's
excited.
her. Yeah, I can only assume it's her like giant, monologue denouncing the Empire and the Emperor after Gorman, but we'll
Well,
see.
you know what's funny? We got no monologues this arc, and I was like, "Hmm."
Yeah, I
We
feel
got a
like what
lot of
Luthen had was a
dialogue,
little
no
close.
lots of dialogue, no monologue.
Yeah.
So that was a little disappointing, and I wish we got more Mon, but I'm gonna say that about every episode of Andor.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see her get some more time
Hmm.
highlighted in
I'm
future
excited to see
episodes.
her and Cassian meet because even though
Yeah.
you wouldn't know it from Rogue One, a lot of the expanded material shows that they work very closely together.
I
So
think that she's gonna order Cassian to kill Luthen.
you think? I
Yep,
think we've talked about this before.
I think we have too.
I don't know if it was before or we talked about it last week, but yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. Um, but it
Especially
just,
after he had her boyfriend killed. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding. That's not gonna play into it, but
When Mon and Luthen reunited, I was waiting for
same,
something. You know what I mean?
same, same here. And of course we did not get it, which is, as
Hmm.
I said, I was left being like, "Well, what happened to Tay?"
Right. I think the car accident, or I keep saying car accident, it's a fucking
Speeder
speeder.
wreck.
The speeder wreck. Um, I feel like that's gonna be the only, you know, knowledge we have of it. Actually, no, I feel like there still has to be something. I feel like where Mon Mothma confronts Luthen, confronts Saw Gerrera. Like, I feel like those moments are very vital and key to this rebellion
Well, that's what I'm
story.
saying.
That we have
I
to see
think
it.
I think that'll come after. There's going to be some kind of introduction between Luthen and, or like with Cassian. I think from Luthen to Mon Mothma.
Yeah.
As far as we know now, they aren't working together, and the
Hmm.
introduction might happen between arcs, so they may
Hmm.
already know each other in the next one. But I think it's going to get to a point where Luthen's too willing to sacrifice so much and sacrifice so many lives, with Mon Mothma being the humanitarian at the end of the day. She
Hmm.
wants to do whatever she can to save as many lives as possible, and
Very
her
true.
and Luthen are gonna have to butt heads. And we keep talking about how he is not on Yavin, like he's
Yeah.
not in any of those scenes. He's
Hmm.
got to die at some point, and I
Yeah.
almost feel like we're starting to see maybe him unravel a little bit in this arc,
Hmm.
where it's getting a little in over his head. There's too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's all kind of crashing down. We're going to have to see some sort of organization. I feel like that starts to come with the next arc. I feel like they can't do all of that in the last 3 episodes with Yavin. But I don't know. We'll see. I have not seen anybody who watched this show complain, especially about the second half of the series. So I'm very interested to get into that. What are some things we can expect for the next arc?
I think we're gonna have to get an update with the energy program in Krennic.
Yeah.
We've only got a little bit of Krennic so far, and
Hmm.
so I think you know what? I'm pretty sure we know we're getting K2SO's introduction next
Yeah.
week, so I
Hmm.
could see some kind of Imperial infiltration,
Yeah.
trying to figure out why Ghorman is so important. We know Clea eventually finds out about the Death Star,
Right.
so
That
we
is
know that
important.
from the trailer. So I almost wonder if maybe this could be them starting to figure out that the Imperial or the Empire is building a super weapon. They're building
Right.
something that they're keeping hidden from everyone. And they're finding out that's why Gorman is so important.
Hmm.
I think that could be where we go. And that could also
Yes.
make it so K2SO comes in.
That makes sense. Kind of like the discovery arc, we'll call it. Like they kind of are honing in on like what the Empire's goals actually are here. We know the Death Star is a big part of it, and so now with that knowledge, they can kind of form their rebellion against that
Because they don't,
actual issue, and
yeah,
that's what
because
we'll
they
see
don't
on
have a
Yavin.
choice. They don't have a
Exactly.
choice at that point. They have to work together or else they are all going to die. And I
Exactly.
think if I remember correctly, I think in the trailer that we saw, Clea says that like it's a weapon. They're building a weapon. So they don't even know what kind of weapon it is. They don't know it's a super weapon, a planet killer at this point.
Hmm.
Obviously we know that comes at the end of Rogue One when they
Hmm.
actually get the plans. But
Yes.
yeah, that's where I think we're going. And I'm interested to see if we're going to see any more defection,
Right.
because it seems like Lonnie is also talking to other officers in the ISB. And I was
Yes.
curious if we're going to see him eventually cluing them in on some stuff. We
Right.
never saw any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where we're going to catch up with everybody. I'm interested to see if everybody that's currently alive now is going to be alive in a year.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if they'll kill anybody off screen, but I'd be interested to see. But something that kind of just clicked in my mind just now after
Mhm.
having this whole conversation,
You're
Luthen's
welcome.
biggest flaw is the fact that he wants everything to be separated. Not only the different rebel cells, but he wants Vel and Cinta to be separated. Like I feel like
Mhm.
that is his biggest flaw here. That's going to be the biggest thing that gets challenged with Luthen is
Well,
like we have to come together.
Well, I mentioned that, and we're almost seeing it in a minuscule scale where he's like, we have to split up these relationships between
Hmm.
Bix and Cassian, Vel and Cinta, because they're just going to make things more difficult. And that's on the minuscule small scale. Whereas in the
Hmm.
larger scale, the rebellion can't be split up. It has
Yeah.
to be together. And we know Mon thinks that. We see her talk about it in Rebels
Hmm.
after she makes her speech.
Right.
So that could also be the thing that kind of causes an outs with them.
That'll yeah, it'll definitely be his downfall. And I feel like that's like a you know, continuous theme throughout season 2. You know, we
Hmm.
know that at least 3 out of 4 arcs, we don't know what the next arc's going to be, but 3 out of 4 arcs are going to be about infighting and coming together. The
Yep.
first arc, the second arc, and then the fourth arc, we know they're going to all come together. So, yeah, very interesting theme here of the entire season. I'm so excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah, you and I both. And I think the perfect way to end the episode is with my favorite quote from the episode.
What's that?
We should have killed Krennic while we were up there.
Yes.
That was
Yes, I did love
perfect.
that moment. And Clay being like, that's the spirit. That
Yeah.
is the spirit. But as we have to wait what feels like a million years for the next episode, Scotty, until then, why don't you send us out of here?
Make sure you follow us on social media at WayseekersPod or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on any of our Andor content. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, may the Force be with you.